Cheech and Chong. Their new animated movie is out. You can pick that up at Cheech and Chong animated.com. Go to cheechandchong.com for more, or check them out on Twitter at Cheech and Chong. How you doing, fellas? It's good to see you again.
We're feeling very too, Cheech and Chong today.
You are feeling that?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like Cheech today? Or?
Yeah, I do. I feel like Cheech. Just sleepy.
It's a sleepy day.
And hungry.
Yeah.
Sleepy and hungry.
So you just had the big 420 celebration, which is like Cheech and Chong Christmas, I guess.
Well, it's Cheech and Chong Day.
We're trying to change it to Cheech and Chong Day, you know?
Although I'm thinking of maybe Cheech's birthday, have a special day. That's July
13th.
July 13th would be nice, so we could have a summer holiday.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking of my birthday. That's too soon to April 20th.
Oh yeah.
So let's do Cheech. Let's do Cheech and Chong Day on
Cheech and Chong Day on July 13th.
July
13th will be Cheech and Chong Day
and barbecue.
Yeah. And it'll be one of those things where it's always Cheech's birthday somewhere. We'll say that. We'll steal all the 420 things for ourselves. Hey, you were telling me you're podcasting with your son now?
Yeah, the Chong and Chong podcast.
Chong and Chong podcast.
And he patterns the show. He's the the brains behind it all. And he patterns the show after you guys.
Oh, that's really cool.
Feds, yeah.
Well, why don't and how often do you guys do it?
We try to get in at least 2 or 3 times a week.
That's a nice schedule, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some, a bare minimum of how much you'll do it. We're playing music as you guys came in, and if it was up to you, if you guys would have made it as a band early on, would you have ever added the comedy, or would you just been happy enough with the band?
We had to make the choice because we actually started a band. I had a band together, and but our comedy was so strong. And I'd been in bands, and so I've been in the best bands, and nothing touched the crowd like our comedy.
Yeah,
and
that just blew up for you.
The comedy just worked, and you didn't want to spoil it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know when you get them laughing, they're screaming, and you walk off the stage.
But you guys do sometimes feel closer to a band to me. And your comedy is like musical.
We're both musicians all our lives.
Yeah.
So we have musician sense of humor.
A musician's sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
Well, how would you describe that? How does that?
What do we timing?
That's what.
What's
the secret to comedy?
It's called timing.
Timing.
We got.
Isn't that timing? Timing.
No, the thing is about musicians. I've been in R&B bands.
Does your daddy know about me?
Yeah, that was one of them. But I had a band before the Stones, before the Beatles, doing Bo Diddley songs and doing all that. And in fact, we introduced Bo Diddley songs to the Canadian culture. Yeah. And I think the only guy that was playing at the same time was Ronnie Hawkins.
The Hawks, he always had a Bo Diddley sound about him.
We all came up. Bo Diddley was our Elvis at the time.
In Canada?
In Canada, yeah.
The Hawks was the band too, right? That was the guys from the band.
Yeah, the band, yeah.
You guys, and you came up more with rock musicians than you did comedians, right?
Yeah, we never hung out with comedians.
Yeah,
because they were always working on material. Hey, that's funny. Are you going to use that? Are you using that? No,
well, not only that, but they weren't interesting.
Right.
They're like, I don't know, in between.
Sure.
You hang out do you hang out with them?
No. Unless you're getting paid, why be with comedians?
Yeah, really,
so
exactly.
Depressing.
And neurotic.
There's always something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big therapy session when you think about it.
Yeah.
They say things on stage they could never say anywhere else.
And very self-centered. Comedians are very self-centered.
Musicians. Physically, a lot of them that I knew were in good shape, and they had good habits, and they could tell the best jokes.
Yeah, they have sense of timing. They know when to do it. That's like what we got, because our method now is we listen to each other and we're like, okay, now put a little notes in here or step back. That it's all music. To
Well, they
us.
tell stupid jokes like this guy, the guy that wrote "Donna, Donna," "Earache My Eye." He told us this funny joke about this guy. It's a true story. He's going to go down on this girl. He says, "I was going to go down on her." He says, "But then she had a colostomy bag." He says, "It almost turned me off."
Almost. Damn near turned me off.
Well, the other thing too is you guys, like your opening records were cut in a studio.
Yeah.
The way that you would do a musical album instead of in front of an audience.
Our contemporaries like George Carlin.
We had a setup like this.
Yeah.
We had a setup just like this.
Not even this big.
We had mics. We had a
engineer on the other side.
Engineer. And that's all we had. Yeah. That's all we needed.
Our contemporaries like George Carlin or Richard Pryor or Lily Tomlin, they all did their live act.
Right.
Their album was their live act, and they would record that. And we went up and made up scenes,
And it's funny, too, because Carlin was a musician. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He played piano in a group.
Wow.
He had a band, and he could sing.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea that he played piano.
He didn't?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, pretty good.
I know that he was a pretty popular rock and roll DJ for a while, too, right?
But he started out playing piano.
Yeah.
So we were different from all those other guys in that we didn't change from one thing to another. Carlin started out as a straight comedian.
Right.
Hey, funny thing happened to me on the way to the club tonight. I'm going to take my mother-in-law. And that and then he's kind of got influenced by the hippie things, and he became a hippie.
He got Lenny Bruce.
He got Lenny
right.
Bruce, yeah.
So did Pryor, too, though,
Pryor,
right?
same thing. But we started off as those guys. We were from those guys.
Well, I got Lenny Bruce when I first got high. The first time I got high, the guy that got me high gave me a joint and a Lenny Bruce record.
Is that right, man?
Yeah. 18 years old.
My dad turned me on to Lenny Bruce, and he was a cop. He didn't know he turned me on to Lenny Bruce, but him and his cop friends used to come over for dinner, and they'd be laying around drinking after, and they put on these Lenny Bruce records, and I would, sneak into the room as a little kid and listen to, and I remember that voice. I didn't understand the jokes because I was too little, but then all of a sudden I got old enough.
I was old enough. I understood the jokes.
You got
and
the
that
jokes.
Joint lasted a month.
Is that right?
Because I'd take a little toke and put it out and laugh my ass off at Lenny, and then next day I'd take another toke.
Yeah, that does me today. I have a joint last a month because I only take one hit.
You take one hit and just stay with it.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
At this point, I don't need a lot of hey, smoke a big bomber because you have so much dope in your system. You just need an igniter, kind of.
Well, since we did the movies, we smoking those big joints, man.
I know
it's too tough.
Well, who's the one that brought you into the studio first? That had the idea that you guys were more of a studio.
We brought ourselves
in.
You
brought yourselves in.
We went to Lou Adler. We heard Lou Adler had seen our open mic night, and we heard about it. Cheech told me Lou Adler saw us, and I didn't know
he asked us to come in for a meeting.
Yeah,
I didn't know who Lou Adler was, and he kind of told me a little bit about it on the way to the meeting. And then when we got there, we didn't have any clue of what we were going to say to him. It was like, what do you want? And he asked us, what do you want?
Right.
And we said, well, we want to make a record.
Yeah, because we see all these gold records.
Yeah.
Right.
So what kind of
Because he
record?
didn't have any comedians, right?
No,
he just had rock and roll acts.
Yeah.
But he was from East L.A., and he really got us.
Yeah.
He got us.
He understood
big
that
time.
whole lowrider thing.
Big time. And so he said, what do you need? And we said, a little tape recorder and $1,000.
We bumped it to 2,000.
Yeah, we finally got it up to 2,000.
Yeah.
And then we took the little tape recorder and we just rehearsed that one time with that tape recorder. And I kind of tortured Cheech. I kept him outside. He kept banging on the door, and I kept saying, "Who is it?"
Yeah.
And finally, I opened the door, and history was made.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Lou that got this thing out and getting played in radio stations. That day.
We recorded it that night. The next morning, it was on every radio station from across the... I don't know how he did it. How did he do it?
A payola.
Payola.
Yeah.
Straight payola.
Hey, here's some money place. Oh, yeah, what is
Changed
that?
our
Don't
life.
worry about it.
Yeah.
I started getting phone calls, and then I turned on the radio, and every radio station in L.A. was saying things like, "Okay, we got 30 minutes for Dave's not here. Cheech and Chong will be up in 30 minutes." They played it over and over.
Then when the album came out, they did the same thing with the album.
Right. Because no one had really done kind of stoner humor before.
We were
and the thing is, it was in a period of time where the rate of the pulse of entertainment was slower. There was it was a golden age of movies, The Godfather, Chinatown, and whole scenes would play out. It wasn't digitized and forced down your throat, and so we had that same rhythm, the same tempo. So the albums that came out and the scenes, and they had very atmospheric, had a lot of background in them, and you were in the scene and you could stay there for a while.
You weren't looking at your cell phone.
Right.
But
there are no one-liners about you guys.
It's not based on the punchline.
Yeah. And the other thing about Cheech and Chong that's always, I thought, was the coolest thing, different than any other comedy team, is that no matter what it is, you guys had just met. In every movie.
Yeah.
Most comedy teams, those guys were together for years, They shared out. You guys had just met somewhere.
But the only thing we changed was, Up in Smoke, we had different names.
Yeah.
I mean, I was Pedro, and he was Men. And
I was Anthony Stoner.
Anthony Stoner. And then after a while, I think the next movie, the new movie, we turned. Let's just be Cheech and Chong, and those two guys are Cheech and Chong. Okay, great.
Okay.
Because it's a work being those guys.
Never felt any pressure about when those things were starting up. You guys knew once you get into it, that magic would come back, right? Every time coming
starting up again?
Yeah, I mean, no matter when you did it, it just felt like, there you go.
It was we never rehearsed, and I got on stage with Tom, and we just went right into it, like it'd been separated for 7 seconds. That was pretty. It's like I'm in the middle of the bit the first time we played, and I'm going, "Oh God, this really is in my DNA." It's like boom, it was easy.
Well, the other day we were doing a show, and we hadn't worked for 2.5 months, and we're doing a song that we had done a million times, and Cheech forgot the lyrics, and of course I forgot the lyrics. Yeah. And we looked at each other, and that was the first time, I think,
and we ever forgot those
that
lyrics.
one of us didn't remember the lyrics.
And we just kind of acknowledged it while we were singing. We'll sing this again later.
Right.
But we have such rhythm with each other that we convey that to the audience, and we don't get thrown anymore, but by anything.
You guys still have music in your life, though? Every day, still hang out musicians, still play music?
Yeah, play music every day.
I can't get rid of it. I try. My kids play. Mm-hmm. My one son's in music school in Boulder, going for a degree. Yeah. And my other son, who manages, Paris, the one that loves you guys, he plays bass, and he's in the show now. He's our road manager, then he plays bass behind us when we play.
All my kids play
music.
Isn't it? That's wild that all your kids play like that.
Yeah, my son's a real good, he can play anything, and he's a DJ as well, I'm learning ukulele now, and I'm having a ball with that.
Just love to pick it up just for the fun of
every day
playing.
I'm married to a classical musician, a classical pianist.
Yeah.
So music every day.
You always had some famous musician girlfriends too, didn't you?
Not famous, no.
I think of one.
Which one?
Am I wrong about Joni?
Oh, she was a friend.
Oh, just a friend?
Yeah.
I always thought
she wanted it a little bit more than a friend.
Yeah.
She had her eye on the little Mexican.
Yeah, hey, come here. And you look like you have...
Yeah, I feel like Mexican tonight.
let me grab those ears. No, we were always buddies.
How does she hold her liquor?
By the ears.
Cheech and Chong's animated movie, that's at CheechandChongAnimated.com, or you can go to CheechandChong.com. They're on Twitter at Cheech and Chong. Now that you guys are back together like this, do you set goals for shit you want to do, or just whatever comes along, you're up for it?
You kind of just take. I just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
The animation. These kids, the Chambers brothers, came to me 4 years ago and asked me what I thought of the idea of animating the bits. My son was involved too, Paris. And then I said, well, you have to, they did the research and went to Lou Adler, and they had to get us to sign off on it. And they did, and 4 years later, they got an animated flick.
Yeah.
We've been offered a lot of things. We got offered a lot of reality-type shows, but you know how that shit is.
Right.
You have to be sort of like dying, and then the reality. You got to be desperate.
Yeah, right.
We're too successful, and it doesn't. That reality format doesn't work. And we're looking at a documentary. There's a great documentary about Ginger Baker.
Oh yeah, I had the director in.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah,
man.
well, he wants to do a documentary
with us.
Oh, he's a wild man too.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
because he went down to South Africa with Baker without even asking.
Know
He
the
showed up
whole
at his
story.
house.
Know the whole story. It's great. And so we got that project. But personally, I like the anime. I like pushing the animation, because if we get our foothold in the animated world, Cheech and I can just stay on the golf course and
right,
relax.
man.
We're looking to replace the Simpsons,
Sure. Well, it works for you guys
The
because
Stoners.
you've always had real defined personalities, and the fact that most of us heard you guys before we ever saw you. And how often does that happen anymore?
It's like comedy teams are very weird, because they all go through kind of the same. Either they started in vaudeville and they're online, and then they get into movies, and they go into TV. You're like, we discovered, I don't know about you, but I discovered Laurel and Hardy on TV.
Right.
When they used to rerun their little.
I saw him in the movie theater.
Did you really?
Yeah.
God. Wow.
I went to movies when it was a nickel.
Really?
A nickel to get in, and you saw all these silent movies.
Wow. What was Fire like the first time you saw it?
Hey, don't laugh. He's right.
He's right.
I grew up in no plumbing, outdoor plumbing.
Yeah.
And a little cook stove for the heating in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where it got as cold as 40 below.
Yeah.
And I lived 8 years.
8 years with basically you're camping at that point.
Yeah. I went into my son. My son is 27 right now, and I went in his room, and he was like about 7 or something like that. And I'm looking at all the stuff he has, like computers and everything electronic. I'm looking at it. He says, when I was a kid, we didn't have TV. And he goes, yeah, I know, you were too poor. And I said, no, it wasn't invented yet.
Right.
I remember when there wasn't TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was.
Luxury was a radio.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a radio. And in Calgary, it was one station, AM station.
And you gather around and look at the radio. I mean, you look at the radio.
Not gathered around. No one cared about it. Only me. So I carried that radio everywhere I went.
Really?
What kind of music was being played on that?
Country. In Calgary? Country.
Yeah. I was the first for both you guys. It was country music.
Not for me first, but I knew country music from an early age. I heard it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is cool.
I was there when the black music was called race music, and you could only get them on 78s.
Yeah.
And it was never played in any radio station. And the porters on the train used to bring them up from the south, or from Chicago, and that would bring them into Calgary. And then I put a band together, and we started learning these records. And everybody that when we played publicly, they thought they were our tunes.
Because they had never heard them before.
The Shades.
They never even knew what it was. It was rock and roll. This was before Elvis, or just around that time, just around Elvis's time.
So it was almost like they were just showing up to hear music, not knowing anything.
In Canada?
Yeah.
No, they were showing up to fight. It was a place where you gather, you get drunk, couldn't pick up a chick, you fought. It was a big fight. There was a brawl in every dance we ever played.
Yeah.
That was part of the thing.
And occasionally in some of those fights, a hockey game would break out. Because,
that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. In fact, the reason I got to Vancouver, the band, I started a teen club. It was the smartest thing I've ever done. I had no clue what I was doing, but I was kind of socially involved in the neighborhood. And I was like 15, 16 years old, and I got caught joyriding was the charge, and I went to jail and for the weekend, got out. Realized that the kids needed something, so I started a teen club with the band, And so we'd have dances every Friday and Saturday at the Legion Hall. It was a beautiful hall. And we packed the place. And then after the dance was over, which was midnight, the kids had nowhere to go. So they would just go off into the city and go to parties and start fight all over the place. Yeah. And so the cops came up to me the summer of '58 and told me that the band had to leave town. They couldn't shut us down. They couldn't shut us down because we were a teen club. They would have to go to court, and there was nothing. We did nothing wrong at the club. But so what they did, they kicked us out of town, literally. And we were glad to go. It was like, oh, yeah, okay, let's go. Boom.
Where'd you go, to Vancouver?
Yeah, I went to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And what took you up to Vancouver, Cheech? How'd you meet?
I was in college, and I was involved in the draft. My last semester, I was involved in the draft resistance movement. We turned in all our draft cards, and, hey, you have no authority after us. Well, yeah, they didn't appreciate that. So they started persecuting us. And so I knew what they were trying to do was illegal. They were trying to reclassify me and then draft me. I was still in school. And so I went to Vancouver. I went to Canada.
Did you do the underground?
No, I went on the Greyhound.
The Greyhound.
Rode the dog.
You didn't sneak into Canada?
No. I became a landed immigrant. I was there for 3 years because you couldn't get a job, and I knew I needed a job because I didn't know how long I was going to be there. Because once I crossed the border and after I got my classification change and they drafted me, I was, there, and who knows how long I was going to be there.
Right.
And so I got right away, I got a legal immigrants, I landed immigrants call, and then I could get a job. But I moved to the exact same region, or the same city that he was born in.
With the outdoor plumbing.
Yeah,
in fact, he had outdoor plumbing. Yeah.
I had outdoor plumbing in Pritis, yeah, and like a pump, and you go to the outhouse, and
nothing will control the bowel movement than cold ass weather,
baby. And
you plan your trip, man. Yeah. You have to put on your winter clothes.
You have to put on your winter clothes. And where I was living in Bragg Creek, you also had to have a shotgun, because you'd go out there. The bears, man. You'd be sitting on there, and it'd be like 20 below, and you're trying to take a dump. And with a shotgun in your hand, man, try to relax,
That's worse than Vietnam.
And the wood would freeze. You couldn't sit on the wood. You sit on the wood, and it would freeze to your ass, so you couldn't even sit all the way down, man. You're like, oh, jeez. But then eventually I made my way and I kept hearing this in the local thing about this musician Tommy Chong who had been there and blah, 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 because he had a hit record. And then I went to Vancouver, and I met him right away. We got introduced by a guy who was an editor of a magazine that I was writing for. And it was history after that.
Unbelievable stuff. I love
he wasn't even Cheech when I met him. He was Richard.
Just Richard.
Yeah. Richard, yeah.
It wasn't until we then he joined the group, and then he was like a writer for the group. And, I had another partner named Dave. Yeah. And then when our success killed us. We were there 9 months, and we changed the club from a topless biker bar into a theater group. And those theater people don't drink shit.
Yeah, right.
Nothing. So we ended up being fired.
Packing the place, but not selling any alcohol.
Exactly.
No money.
Yeah.
No money. Just bodies and no bread.
But it was great. We were doing topless improv. And what it really was at the end of the day was hippie burlesque.
Right.
We were doing burlesque, baby, with naked girls. I mean, you'd come out, but they would start fully clothed. And they would be in a scene. And then somewhere in the scene, they would take off their clothes.
Well, we got a lot of our jokes from the Playboy joke book.
But when you even brought up burlesque, it's the weird thing is there is something really traditional about what you guys do.
Yeah, very.
And yet it was seen as this old, this different thing. But it's really as old as comedy.
Yeah.
It is.
And we knew it at the time. But everybody else was, this, that. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. But Lenny Bruce came out of the same thing.
Out of topless places.
Milton Berle.
Red Skelton. Bob Fosse came out of a strip club.
Yeah,
he was the choreographer and the pasty warmer, and we did the same thing, but we started including, dope jokes in that, and then it was like, and they didn't know what to make of us. I mean, they had no idea. I didn't know.
And we didn't really give a shit.
Yeah, right.
Because I owned the club.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people, and we turned the club so fast because as soon as we started doing anything theater, all the theater people came out and they were digging us. We got a lot of.
There is a kind of a secret of success of not giving a shit, though, isn't there? Like when you're not looking for it and you're saying, "I'm just going out and going to please myself."
Yeah.
Then you've got a place to go.
That's always been our thing, man. If it doesn't make us laugh, then why do it?
You got to be young, though.
Yeah, right.
You got to be young. Your overhead has to be nothing.
No, because what happens when you get older, the I don't give a shit just travels into every area of your life.
I kind of don't give a shit. And then, well, I could give a shit.
Yeah. But it is like, you're right, though. Like, as soon as you get a nice, comfortable house, you're like, well, why would I go out there again, Yeah. Like, all those things kind of work against all the stuff that was when you're just living out of a suitcase.
Our image was these rebel guys, know, and so we were encouraged to do that.
Right.
Well, we had no choice. Yeah. When I came down, I had a choice. I owned 2 nightclubs. Mm-hmm. I could have stayed there and lived a pretty nice life. But as soon as I found out that we could get laughs, the 2 of us, are you kidding? Because I'd done the band thing, and putting up with drummers and psychos, and, and where's your bass? Oh, fuck, I forgot it, man.
And when we split up, I thought that's what Tommy was going to do. He's going to go back to Vancouver and open up a club or be involved in the club scene. But he went on the road and learned stand-up.
Yeah, well, Ron was there the first one.
Yeah, right from the beginning.
Really?
Yeah,
first gigs.
Really?
Yeah, he came.
I had 5 minutes.
Yeah, he only had a couple of minutes and was figuring it out on stage. But it was really interesting, to see it happening. But I used to have a phone on the stage, and he called you one night from the stage, and the place went crazy. Yeah. I'm like, what are these guys waiting for, man? You see, everybody wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing, though. But I think, in hindsight, that turned out to be so good for you to get out and do it that way, man.
I had to learn. I had to learn my craft.
Yeah.
I knew how to do the improv. I had to learn how to do stand-up.
Yeah.
And it took 30 years.
It's a thing you have to learn. It's like if you can play guitar doesn't mean you can play banjo or
exactly.
or bass or something. And they're stringed instruments, but it's a different deal.
No, stand-up.
Stand-up's a whole different animal.
We just look at people, oh, you're stand-up? Okay, let's see it.
Yeah, go for it. Cheech and Chong, I love when you guys stop by, man.
It's our pleasure.
You're always welcome. I'm so glad that Paris listens to the show. And tell him feel free to call anytime, man.
He patterns our podcast after you guys.
That's really cool to hear. At Cheech and Chong on Twitter, CheechandChongAnimated.com, and CheechandChong.com to go check it out. Good to see you, boys.
You too.
I'll see you next time coming through, man.
Our pleasure.